Congratulations on your new job. This webinar has been prepared by the College of American Pathologists New in Practice Committee to help you navigate the next steps of your career. This webinar is based on material previously presented by Dr. Jared Gardner, with additions by Dr. Cecilia Lascano-Lopez and myself. I'm Lauren King, a new in practice pathologist in Memphis, Tennessee. While the steps after you've signed your contract appear obvious, they can be time-consuming and confusing. It's important that you get set up to legally practice medicine and get paid, and that you physically move to your new location. Don't panic. In this webinar, the New in Practice Committee will provide a loose timeline to help you along your way. While these steps will differ from one place to the next, this roadmap may help you stay on track. In general, this timeline begins with the state licensing process, board scheduling, then hospital and practice credentialing. The later steps include a decision on your start date and ultimately your relocation. One of the first steps is to begin working on your new state license. Unfortunately, this can often be a slow process, particularly if you have multiple other licenses, attended an international medical school, have malpractice history, or if you have any yes answers to those standard medical license questions about suspensions, crime, drugs, and so forth. If you haven't started licensing during your job application or training, start working on this as soon as you have a job offer. Many other steps in this process will depend on having a state license in place. You may also consider setting up a Federation Credential Verification Service, or FCVS, account, depending on your state. It can be a significant upfront investment. However, more states are relying on it to obtain primary source verification. Once FCVS source verifies all of your documents, they're able to send them to states and institutions upon your request, which may save you time down the road if you ever move. One New in Practice Committee member said, "This really saved my life when getting my New York license that I had been warned could be a nightmare. My process went smoothly and I got licensed in 6 weeks." If you'll be leaving a boarded training program, get ready for your subspecialty exam. Registration for the exams is typically before you will have started your new job. Don't let it slip through the cracks. Consider how you will schedule time to study for the exam. Will there be time available in your new position? Did you consider taking time off before starting your new job? Or can you squeeze in studying at the end of your training? You may not have a perfect answer, but at least start to consider the issue. Request leave for your exam and travel time early. While you may be the new kid on the block at your new job, making it clear that this is for your boards should help it be prioritized. You can look at the window for the examination on the ABP website to give your group some idea of your timeline, and then finalize your date when it's assigned, which is generally in early to midsummer. In all of the chaos of moving, don't forget to make travel arrangements for the tests too. Find out if your new institution's educational or CME funds can help pay. Finally, remember you might be traveling out of an unfamiliar airport, so check any parking or security information before the day of your flight. The reality of your new job may finally sink in when a giant stack of credentialing paperwork arrives. The credentialing process involves getting hospital privileges for a group or university, and credentialing you with all of the various payers. Once your packet arrives, go ahead and get started. During the process, stay organized and be responsive to requests. Be proactive. If you'll be gone on a vacation or extended road trip during this time, let contact people at your new institution know. Speaking of contact people, it's important to identify the key people in the credentialing process. Know to whom you should return items and your go-to people for questions, particularly if there are multiple entities credentialing you at the same time. I mentioned staying organized. Staying organized is probably one of the biggest tips I can offer for this whole shebang. Keep copies of anything you send by mail or email. Things get lost, and it's much easier if you just have a second copy you can send over quickly. Keep copies of any emails and document who you speak to when you call a question. It'll be easier to follow up on things when you can identify who has previously helped you. You should trust the people working with you in this process, but expect something to fall through the cracks along the way. Skipping ahead, later in the process, keep all of this paperwork with you when you move, instead of on the moving truck. You'll likely need some original documents when you onboard at your new place, and items might be requested while you're actually in transit. Personally, I have electronic copies of almost everything requested for credentialing in a secure internet drive. When I receive a request for this license or that hospital form, it's easy to send over an electronic copy. Don't forget, your new job may also want TB test or flu shot information, so save documentation of those too. One confusing issue I ran into during credentialing was a request for a case log. If you need to, clarify with the credentialing body the information they actually need. Sometimes, case logs are geared more towards our clinical colleagues, and the requests don't actually apply to us. More often, a case log printed from your LIS or anatomic path system, including the number of cases you've signed out or dictated as a resident, will be sufficient for their needs. If you're just completing training, they may instead ask for a letter detailing this type of information from your program director. At my first job, this letter could not be completed until I had graduated, so I had everything else ready to go and only left that final training letter pending. Once you're on the road to being credentialed, work with your new employer to find a mutually agreeable start date, if this hasn't been previously defined. A few things to consider. Some credentialing organizations and licensing bodies will make you explain any gap in training and work history that's more than 30 days. So if you're considering taking an extended break, be prepared to document the reason on future licensure applications. As you prepare to relocate to a new location, you'll want to check on a few details. Are relocation costs covered by your new practice? Hopefully, this was included in discussion at the time of your contract negotiation, but you still may need to seek further details. Is there a preferred moving company you should use? Are house hunting trips covered? How do you get reimbursed? Are receipts submitted all at once or one at a time? And is there a time limit for submitting reimbursement requests? During the actual relocation process, it can be helpful to set up a personal timeline. Remember to leave time for housing searches and moving company reservations. One thing I didn't realize was that movers need to be booked well in advance, particularly in the busy summer months when many of us will be moving. I almost waited too late and had to call multiple companies to find availability. Also, remember packing will always take longer than you expect. Keep your contact information up to date, including with the American Board of Pathology, state medical boards, and your new job. Be sure to update your training programs too, particularly if you're waiting on that completion certificate. If you're moving to a temporary housing location, consider setting up a P.O. box or asking a trusted family member if you can use their address. It can be quite difficult to be sure that all your mail is going to the right place during these big moves, and you don't want to miss an important request for information or document. Another thing to consider is that your income is about to massively change. Before your first big attending paycheck drops, be clear about your benefits, retirement options, and check into insurance and financial planning. Financial professionals can help you determine what type of coverage you may need and help you develop strategies for dealing with your new tax bracket. When we talk about insurance, one important consideration is malpractice coverage. Understandably, this can be a difficult subject to discuss with anyone, especially those people hiring you. However, knowing the details of any coverage is crucial. This may not be the very first thing you ask the prospective employer, but eventually the conversation has to occur. One way to approach this is to ask for the policy manager. Depending on your practice setup, this may be a person from a private company or a separate office or department within your institution. Some of the basic information to gather includes what type of policy you'll have, the liability limit, your contribution, if any, and any options for supplementary coverage. Also ask if tail coverage is necessary with your policy. Some occurrence-type plans don't need it, but if it is needed with your policy, you'll need to know if it's provided or if you must purchase it. Once you gather this basic information, you can begin to research the standard coverage for pathologists in your area. If the basic coverage provided by your job appears below average, consider purchasing additional coverage. This can be expensive, so that's why we're including it here in the financial consideration. If you're an international medical graduate, you may have additional needs during this onboarding process. Be sure to include your migratory status or visa needs early in the conversation during the credentialing process. While employers are typically aware of visa needs from the time of application, it is ultimately your responsibility to hold a status that will legally allow you to work for your new employer. Definitely make sure this doesn't fall through the cracks. Since every case is different, guidance from an immigration attorney is key. It is also recommended that you consider a backup plan during the credentialing process for your visa and migratory needs. Remember, visa and green card processing times can vary widely. One consideration is to request sponsorship for a visa while you're awaiting your green card or employment authorization document, just in case approvals don't come through on time for your start date. Finally, I'll highlight a few important don'ts in the process. Don't accidentally lose access to old email. Start including forwarding information well in advance of your transition. Consider establishing a permanent professional email to use for communications from your new institution, new state board, the American Board of Pathology, and training programs. Also, take it from me. Save important contacts from your current institution's email system and make backups of any important documents lingering in your inbox. I got burned when my email access ended the day after I left my training institution, and I suddenly lost several contacts that I had stored in their system. Don't allow your desired state licenses to expire. Be sure you update contact information and go ahead and put renewal date reminders in your calendar now. It's also a great time to make note of any special CME requirements for other state licenses you hold. It's so easy to lose track of these as you move away. Finally, don't ignore any requests for documentation during the credentialing process. While the process can seem to take forever and is sometimes redundant, remember that this is your first exposure to your new institution. Be prompt and polite and make a great first impression. Hopefully, these steps and pointers will help you feel more comfortable with the upcoming onslaught of paperwork that will accompany your transition into your new job. Congratulations again, and don't forget to visit the New in Practice website for more resources for your first years in practice. Good luck.